shit. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Welcome to Otaku Chris is Talking. This is your weekly Rick and Morty episode review, and this is for episode 5, titled The Whirly Dirty Conspiracy. Now, if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe as I make regular Rick and Morty content as well as other manga, anime, otaku related things, movie reviews here and there. So there's bound to be something that y'all will be interested in. So subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. So now, this episode was personally one of my favourite episodes. Now, obviously, Rick and Morty is just fucking amazing. Every episode is amazing. But obviously, because we have to decide which one we prefer, and this is just a review, critique kind of thing about things like that, I would put this one high up there. Purely because we actually got to see Rick and Jerry chill together. Yeah, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and it actually started off differently because you genuinely think that they're getting along. And sorry, what am I doing? Let me just start off with how it starts. So there are like two different plot lines. 3 technically, but 2 major different plot lines going on in this episode. The plot of Rick and Jerry going off to an adventure, which Jerry thinks at first was an assassination attempt, which is kind of like, whoa. And then Rick's words, you really do need a W, a win. And then the other plot line is with Beth, Summer, and Morty. How the fuck did I forget Morty? With Beth, Summer, and Morty, with trying to sort out the whole thing that Summer's basically gigantified herself to make her boobs bigger, but then instead of just doing the boobs, the other boob got too big, and then from that, her arm got too big, and she becomes too big, and it becomes a whole mess. And so, like, that was pretty cool, but the actual second plot line was between Beth and Morty, and I really liked that, because in this episode, you really find out that she's just as twisted as Rick. Morty even says, like father, like goddamn mother. I fucking love that. Like, you actually see Morty just getting twisted. He just had enough. And even though he's like meant to be the nice one and all that kind of stuff, we know that secretly Morty is hella twisted. So those were 2 kind of major plot lines. The episode actually starts off with Rick running into Jerry's room, like, well, wherever Jerry's staying right now, the hotel, the motel where he's staying, and you see Jerry is just feeling like shit. He's just looking at the pictures. Everything reminds him of his family. The stains, the moldy stains on the wall reminded him of the picture of him and his family. It's kind of like, how did you even get there? But this was really to try and show us, like, everything's reminding of his family. And then Rick just runs in exactly the same way that he does it with Morty in episode 1. But he's kind of like, we're going on an adventure, Morty. But it's not Morty, it's Jerry. I was like, what the fuck? And Jerry's totally naked. And he's like, I need my pants. And then he's like, no, I'll get you some new pants. And then it just kind of cuts into the cutscene. And I was like, oh, okay, this is just really going there. It then goes into Rick actually explaining to Jerry what was going on. Is like, all right, basically, Morty was worried that you might try and kill yourself, so I'm gonna try and make you happy. So by doing this, we're gonna go on an adventure together. But I don't really care about the adventure. I just basically need to make sure that Morty stays happy, because if he's not happy, then our adventures don't work out properly. Which makes me wonder, why is that? So that was one of the huge questions that kind of came into my mind. There was a second question later on in the episode where Rick and Jerry, everything gets sorted, and then they actually try to go into this plane or the spaceship kind of to go away. Rick gets scanned, and when Rick gets scanned, like, they end up like, one of the guys who works there says Rick is a class C and above cybernetic augmentation. And I was like, what? Where is this? And then I was like, oh, what if it's to do with the whole thing that he was a pickle before? And then I remembered, no, because he actually kept his body preserved, so that was perfectly fine. So then I was like, oh, so it's not to do with him being Pickle Rick. But then I was like, wait a second, if he's been to that resort where if you die you come back to life again, wouldn't that whole resort just make you back to your human self? Or was Rick never ever really human? Or how does the resort work? And yeah, so I know I'm kind of going back and forth everywhere, but hey, this is how the whole fucking series goes. So this is how the reviews are gonna go. So like that brought up a lot of questions. And then, but with the whole death mortality thing, when they get to the resort, you legit, like, it looks like it's really fancy. Jerry even says, hey, this is really fancy. And Rick's like, look, you don't know what's really fancy. For, you know, this could be the universal equivalent of a truck stop. And I was dying. There are so many quotes in this that I just, I'm going to just say a couple of quotes at the end. Right now, I'm just going through beat for beat, roughly what was happening, so then we can kind of get the gist of the episode. So yeah, and then from that, we get to see, like, well, we see this person just coming straight up, just stab Rick straight in the chest, and I was like, holy shit, that was hella dark. I don't know why I took it seriously. Because it's Rick and Morty. You should never take anything seriously. But, and then Rick actually ends up killing the other guy back, and I was like, oh shit. And then, like, Jerry was like, oh my god, he's dead, somebody help him. But then they come back to life. The spear that was inside Rick falls out, you see him heal up, and there's a hole where he was stabbed, and I was like, this is kind of different. And Rick actually brought Jerry there because he thought, well, someone who's that pathetic and who might want to kill himself, to make sure he doesn't die, let's take him to a place where you can't die, where you'll regenerate regardless. So that was pretty nice of Rick, I guess. So anyway, so around that point there, Rick and Jerry actually end up having a really close heart-to-heart. And it's like, oh shit, that's not actually, like, this is kind of weird. Them two are actually getting along quite well. Like, Rick even ends up admitting that, hey, maybe it was him who kind of ruined the whole family, well, their whole marriage and everything, which is the whole reason why Jerry's even so fucked up, because Jerry is basically bringing up the fact of, hey, wait a second, everything was fine until a couple of years ago when Rick came back from his adventures, because we all know that he's been gone for around 20 years roughly, no, more than around 20 years, because he wasn't there for apparently Morty's birth or something like that. So once again, so many episodes kind of say different things, so different universes, different Ricks, different Mortys, different Jerrys. Who knows which one is which one? Who knows if we're even with the pickle Rick. It's kind of weird saying that. Yeah, so from that, like, they get along together very well, but then Jerry ends up basically going to the toilet, dries his hands, falls into some next room, and ends up meeting somebody called Risotto Groupon. Risotto Groupon. And I was like, well, I feel like your name is just Risotto and Groupon put together. Is this kind of like coincidence that you're the chef? I'm gonna guess you're the chef. And lo and behold, he was the chef. But Risotto Groupon, he was one of the only main characters that we actually got introduced to in this episode, in comparison to last week's episode where we got introduced to loads of characters. In this episode, Risotto Groupon is actually the main antagonist, and he's the person who actually ends up chasing Rick and Jerry, well, mostly just Rick, and he basically just wants to kill him because he feels like Rick has totally fucked up his life. Jerry understands that, and it's kind of like, yeah, I do get that, but at first Jerry's very like, and yeah, so but then once Jerry ends up going back, speaking to Rick, realizing Rick's an actual dick, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna get you sorted out. I'm gonna follow these guys' plans, and these guys' plans were to basically take Jerry and Rick. It's really weird saying Rick and Jerry in the same fucking conversation. End up taking Rick and Jerry onto this ride called the Whirly. And the reason why I want to go onto that ride is because the whole place is covered in a force field. The Whirly every now and then goes slightly out of the force field. So if you can kill someone dead and throw them out, they won't heal. And that was the whole plan. But as we know how this is, it all goes to shit. Rick finds out what Jerry's up to. They end up having fucking beef, and then it all just goes downhill from there. Meanwhile, Beth, Morty, they're going through something else as well. Like, Beth is basically, she's having a mental breakdown. She's collected the hooves of loads of different horses, and she's making a weird horse out of the hooves, which is kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? And you can see Morty's just like, why? And then someone comes in out of nowhere and she's like, oh, am I beautiful? And then I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this family? This whole family is so weird. And then Beth's kind of like, what? And then someone's like, I'm hideous, aren't I? She goes over to the garage, going through all Rick's stuff, where you get to see some of the other compartments, secret compartments that Rick hires. The way she opened it was really quite easy. This is very dangerous and very hazardous. And then she ends up actually finding this invention that Rick made to make things bigger. And yeah, so I think a few of you would have seen from promos and through trailers and through like things from last season about this season of Summer actually getting really big, and this was the episode. And it didn't actually work out right for her, because at first her left boob one boob gets big, then the other boob gets bigger, then she's like, oh shit, let me make this one bigger, and then she's like, oh shit, then her arm gets in the way, and then she just turns into some really morphed ugly thing, and it's kind of like, what the hell? And like, I was like, how are you gonna what is this? Now, Beth and Morty walk past the garage and like, what the fuck is going on here? And Beth's like, no, don't worry, I'll get this sorted. Morty's like, should we just call Rick? Beth's like, no, I can do this. So she tries to sort things out and she just makes things worse and worse and worse. And we kind of end up finding out that the reason why Summer's doing this is because Summer actually, she's really pissed off that her ex-boyfriend left her for a girl with really big boobs. So she really felt like she was inferior. So she wanted to make her boobs big. And instead, it just goes all wrong. Lo and behold, they all go over to where Summer is. Beth actually ends up being the mother of the day. Yeah, mother of the episode. Let's just say mother of the few minutes. Mother of the ending of Rick and Morty. And puts herself into the same situation as her to make Summer feel comfortable. And then they have a heart-to-heart, a giant heart-to-heart, legit a giant heart-to-heart in front of Ethan, who I do think was a name of Summer's ex-boyfriend and Ethan's new girlfriend. And it's like, what is going on here? The new girl, Ethan's new girlfriend runs away. Well, not really runs away. It's kind of like, I need to speak to my mum to tell her I love her. And then like Ethan's about to get up, but then Morty's like, nah. You need to sit down. Yeah, you made my sister cry. So why don't you just take a seat right now? And it's like, what is Morty going to do? This episode is mostly Rick, Jerry, and their adventures, kind of just trying to hide or run away from the risotto Groupon, and they just caused a whole bunch of destruction. And one thing was actually one of my favorite moments, which was also one of the darkest moments, was when they're on the roller coaster, just going through the whole fight scene thing, and the roller coaster just breaks, and they end up rolling out of the whole resort that they're in, and then the force field comes down. Now there are these kids that were in the episode earlier on, and they were shooting each other, killing each other, but they're kind of coming back to life again. And I was like, and it looked pretty cool, but they didn't know that the barrier had come down. So I think the boy ends up shooting his sister, and she just doesn't get up, and it's like, oh. So yeah, that's kind of pretty much what happened. But what I want to talk about is my favorite quotes that came out of this episode. Now, if I was to do a real breakdown, I think it would take me way too long. So I'm going to leave the professionals up to that, those who get paid for it. And I'm just going to go through the quotes that I just had to talk about. Beth ends up saying to Morty, oh look, this button says normalized. But then Morty's like, if the machine was made by spider people, the normal would mean 8 legs. And that is quite true. And you know for a full fact that in this series, Morty's probably seen a lot of shit. There's also a scene where Rick and Jerry were kind of like just discussing why they hate each other and the real reason why they hate each other. And then Rick says to Jerry, you act like a prey, but you're a predator. And at first I was like, no, Jerry's a prey. Yeah, he's pretty much a prey. But later on in the episode, when Rick's been kind of just numbed down a little bit and then Jerry has more control, you see how Jerry would actually be if somebody was weaker than him. Jerry's an actual dick. He was actually he kind of made him flinch as well. I was like, whoa, you're an actual dick. So we know how Jerry really thinks. And it's crazy how Rick was actually right in this. And that's something that this series likes to play up, is that Rick's a dick, but he's actually right most of the time. Another really funny quote was from Beth, when Beth and Morty are inside the car going after Summer, who's just gigantified herself. And then Beth says to herself, Mama's coming, baby. She cares about your titties. Another awesome quote was from Risotto Groupon, when he actually ends up catching Rick and Jerry before they go into the whole wormhole thing, which was super hella trippy. Really loved that part. It was actually one of my favorite parts. It's kind of like, whoa, like don't watch this episode if you're on LSD or if you're smoking weed, because you're going to be somewhere else. And then like Risotto's like, oh my god, I feel like I'm sorry. He's about to apologize. Looks like he's about to make peace. Then Rick just straight up, his arm turns into this whole crazy cyborg thing, which looks like it's going to be some crazy gun. It's like a suction cup. What the actual fuck? Ends up grabbing the gun from Risotto Groupon and shoots him in the head. And Jerry's like, what the hell? He's going to apologize. He's going to come clean and be nice. And Rick's like, no, because cosmic hypothesis wears off faster than salvia. And I don't know why. I think that was super hilarious. And also during the wormhole sequence, like so much crazy shit is happening. And then some quick flash of Rick just goes past and he says, I have shit on my ass. What the actual hell? There was loads of things going on in this episode. I really liked this episode. What did you guys think? Do you guys think this was as good as last week's episode? Did you prefer this week because it focused more on the characters and less on the external characters? Or did you prefer last week's episode because it had more characters were introduced to and because they had a lot more themes? What do you think about the way this episode was written? Do you prefer the writing of this episode better than last week's episode? Let me know your thoughts. I liked last week's episode because I really like Saw and I like the whole Marvel movie references and stuff, and I got those references a bit more than some of the other references in this episode. So that's why I personally liked last week's episode. But this episode was cool because it did focus more on the core characters, and maybe that's a strength that people would prefer from this episode compared to last week's. Let me know your thoughts. So yeah, this episode was really fun. I would give this episode like a 8.5. I'll give it an 8.5 because there didn't need to be a message in itself, but we did get to find out how Rick and Jerry really feel about themselves, and how Rick doesn't actually look at Jerry as someone who's weak, but as someone who pretends to be weak but is actually just a prick, pretty much just as bad as him. And it's interesting to see that, and it's really cool to see that dynamic, because Jerry's hasn't really been around purely because of the whole divorce thing, but I like that. We also got to see Morty and Beth together, which is super cool, because this time Morty is kind of a bit more on the higher ground, a bit more mentally stable, which is fucked because Morty's normally not mentally stable. He's normally screaming or crying, or his legs are broken, or some crazy shit's happening. So it was actually, oh my god, before I go, it's actually cool because Morty actually said that when Beth was fucking up, was like, the reason why I asked for Rick to go and get my dad wasn't for anything nice. It was just so that I could just have a normal day for once. Fucking love that. Anyways, hope you guys had a great day. What do you think of this episode? Hope you guys enjoyed this review. If there are things I missed out, let me know. If there are things you want me to talk about more, do let me know. I am still new to this whole review thing for Rick and Morty, and I know that there are loads of references. It's just very hard to make an episode without talking about it for exact panel for panel, beat for beat. Like, I don't know. I don't want you guys to get bored. Hope you guys have a great day. Subscribe for more from myself. Chris is talking. Peace.